It's not known exactly when the King of the Monsters was first born, only that he predates any and all known human history. Godzilla would lay dormant in the ocean for millions of years until the end of World War II, when the United States would drop nuclear bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. However, when they tested this technology, they would inadvertently awaken and change the creature known as Godzilla. This monster would go on to terrorize the nation of Japan as well as the rest of the world. In response to Godzilla, as well as the other kaiju that would begin to appear afterwards, the international organization known as the Earth Defense Force would be formed to protect humanity from these monsters. However, they were never able to defeat the most powerful of them, Godzilla himself. That is, until one day in the 1960s, the EDF ship the Gotengo would lure Godzilla into the Arctic, and after a long battle with many lost lives would trap the King of the Monsters in solid ice, finally defeating the most powerful kaiju. And it's here where Godzilla would be held for an unknown amount of decades, until one day the Japanese Prime Minister would go missing, only to be revealed to have been rescued by an alien race known as the Zillions, who wished to have an alliance with Earth. However, a group of EDF agents would discover that the Prime Minister had been replaced with a Zillion and would confront the aliens publicly. And it was at this point that a high-ranking Zillion simply named X would perform a coup d'etat, taking control and deciding to wage war by controlling the remaining kaiju and unleashing them on the population. The EDF's mutant soldiers would end up mind-controlled, resulting in only the crew of the Gotengo remaining. So, in order to fight the remaining monsters, the crew would travel back to the Arctic and would free Godzilla. The King of the Monsters would then be ambushed immediately by the alien kaiju Gigan before easily blowing its head off and trying to attack the Gotengo, thinking that no time had passed since its last battle, and would try to destroy the ship only to be led across the world where Godzilla would face all of the controlled kaiju, and one by one would defeat all of them until being led to Tokyo, where the asteroid named Gorath was said to collide with the Earth. However, using his atomic breath, Godzilla would minimize the damage with only the city being reduced to ruins. However, this asteroid would in fact turn out to be a vessel for the Zillion's most powerful weapon, Monster X, which would prove to be Godzilla's equal, and the two would continue to battle until a repaired and upgraded Gigan as well as Mothra would come to their aid. However, even outside help wasn't enough to break this stalemate, and so, after the defeat of his master, Monster X would mutate into its true form, Kaiser Ghidorah. Now far more powerful, Ghidorah would quickly overpower Godzilla and would begin draining his energy. However, as all hope seemed lost, the Gotengo, who had dealt with the Zillions once and for all, would transfer energy into Godzilla, would transfer Kaiser energy into Godzilla, giving him the power to overpower and defeat Ghidorah, destroying him with his red spiral ray. However, despite the crew's aid, Godzilla would then attack and ground the Gotengo and would have finished off the crew if not for a young member of his species, or maybe it's his son? I honestly don't know what the deal is with Final Wars Manila. Would step in between Godzilla and the humans, seemingly convincing the King of the Monsters to stop fighting, and the two would return to the sea, with Godzilla finally being allowed to rest. Generations ago, Kurama would be created along with the other 8-tailed beasts when Hagoromo Okatsuki separated the power of the 10 tails. Kurama would spend his early life defending a temple and over time would gain a vicious reputation of a hate-filled demon. However, one day, a man named Madara Uchiha would track him down and would use his dojutsu, the Sharingan, to control the fox and would use him as a weapon against Hashirama Senju in a fight to the death. After losing and Madara's death, Kurama, despite not having fought willingly, would be sealed into Hashirama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, who would become its first Jinchuriki. Being isolated by its first host and being transferred into her descendant Kushina, Kurama would remain trapped until years later Kushina would give birth to her son Naruto. However, on the night of his birth, Obito Uchiha would attack, extracting the Bijou, and once again using the Sharingan to control him would send Kurama to attack Konoha. And once again not being in control, would attack the village, killing many shinobi defending the village, even facing off against the third Hokage. Eventually, after the fourth Hokage, Minato, would defeat Obito, Kurama would regain self-control. However, considering he still held a grudge over being sealed away for several generations, Kurama would continue his attack until being confronted by Minato, who would lead him away and would begin to seal him into his newborn son. However, seeing this, he would try to kill the infant Naruto, but Kushina and Minato would both get in the way, sacrificing themselves for their child. Minato would then seal half of Kurama's power into Naruto and half into himself, and would soon pass along with his wife from their injuries. Kurama would then be forced to remain dormant, waiting for his seal to weaken. Then, one day, during his first real mission, Naruto would tap into Kurama's power in order to defeat the enemy ninja Haku. Soon after this, as Naruto was training, he would have to learn to actively use Kurama's chakra and would confront the tailed beast, finally meeting the Nine Tails. The young boy, probably not knowing any better, would then demand the use of Kurama's chakra. And Kurama, being impressed that he had made it this far, as well as the fact that he likely wanted to avoid his own death, would grant him the use would grant him the chakra needed. Kurama would continue to lie in wait, weakening the seal, and would attempt to lure Naruto into using more and more of his power when the boy was vulnerable, such as when his best friend Sasuke was leaving the village, when his friend Gaara was killed by the Akatsuki, an organization attempting to capture the tailed beasts, once again when he confronted Orochimaru, and finally Kurama nearly succeeded when Naruto returned to this village only to find it destroyed by the Akatsuki's acting leader Pain, only to then watch him murder his friend Hinata as she tried to save him. This would cause Naruto to snap and give in to the Nine-Tails more than ever, going so far as into the Eight-Tailed state. However, before Kurama could fully convince Naruto to give in, Minato would appear, talking Naruto down and repairing the steel to its original state, setting Kurama back to square one. On the outside, Obito, following up on his plans from years ago, would set the world into war, and Naruto would be forced to confront Kurama yet again in order to gain control of his power. And the two would fight, with Kurama gaining the upper hand. However, once again, one of Naruto's parents, this time Kushina, would interfere, allowing Naruto to turn the tides and fully control Kurama's chakra, gaining the Kyuubi chakra mode, and once again sealing Kurama. But before he would leave, Naruto would vow to change Kurama's hate-filled heart. Using KCM, Naruto would make his way to the front lines of the war, eventually facing Madara Uchiha, who would attempt to summon Kurama. Feeling this and recognizing the man who had used him, Kurama would decide that he'd rather help Naruto than be controlled once again, allowing him to enter into a chakra cloak in the form of Kurama, and using this form would battle the other 6 controlled tailed beasts. However, as the fight raged on, Madara would eventually extract Kurama and place him into the Ten-Tails, nearly killing Naruto in the process. Later, as Naruto fought Madara and later Hagoromo's mother Kaguya, Kurama and the other tailed beasts would be freed until Sasuke would seal them all away and use their power to strengthen himself. However, he would eventually be defeated by Naruto, and together they would free the tailed beasts as well as everyone under Madara's infinite Tsukuyomi. Kurama would then return to Naruto, where he would work with him as he grew into a man, became Hokage, and started a family. However, one day, as Naruto was losing a battle against Ishiki Otsutsuki, Kurama would tell Naruto about Baryon mode, which should allow Naruto to defeat Ishiki, but at the cost of their lives. Naruto, in order to defend his son and friend, despite knowing the risks, Naruto would agree to use this form and eventually would beat Ishiki with it. Once again in their subconscious, Kurama would talk with Naruto one last time, telling him that Naruto would tell him that despite having killed his parents, Naruto had forgiven him, but as he prepared to die, Kurama would reveal that Naruto would be fine. However, Kurama would die and that he had lied, knowing that if Naruto knew that this would be the outcome, that he would hesitate to use the ability. And so, in his final moments, he warned Naruto to be careful and wished him well before finally passing away. Hello and welcome everyone to my second season finale, where I've got a good old-fashioned Kaiju vs. Biju battle with the King of the Monsters, Godzilla, from the 2004 Final Wars film, and the Nine-Tailed Fox, Kurama, from the Naruto manga, and any non-conflicting elements from its anime adaptation. Okay, now to get this out of the way right now, as a brief aside about Kurama's size, unfortunately, as far as I can tell, there isn't any consensus on how big Kurama actually is, with some claiming he's about as tall as Gamabunta at around 94 feet, and some saying he's much taller at nearly 1,000 feet. And his size does seem to fluctuate in the manga, so for the purpose of this match, I'll be treating it as though Kurama standing on both legs would be roughly as tall as Godzilla at roughly 300 feet. Now, I'm aware that this may be incorrect, but once again, I can't find many people who agree on his height, and I honestly couldn't find any official source on it. So again, I will say that it's roughly equal as to not incorrectly nerf or buff Kurama, and I will not limit or exaggerate any of his abilities based on his size. Right, with that out of the way, let's start by comparing these two physically. Standing at 328 feet tall and weighing 55,000 tons, Godzilla towers over large buildings and his fellow kaiju alike. Known worldwide as the most powerful monster, Godzilla earned and reinforced this reputation by slaying nearly all of the mind-controlled kaiju, many being taken out flawlessly. Like all others, this version of Godzilla was strong, possibly being the strongest of the Earth kaiju, taking down all the others. He could catch Kamacuras while moving at Mach 2 without flinching, used his tail to send Godzilla and Anguirus flying, was a match for Monster X, who lifted Godzilla up and restrained him, and finally, after being enhanced with Kaiser energy, could throw Kaiser Ghidorah hundreds of feet into the air, which on its own is impressive, but gets even more so when you take into account that Kaiser Ghidorah weighed 200 million tons. Despite his immense size, Godzilla's speed wasn't impeded in the slightest, and he could keep up with insanely fast kaiju as well as multiple at once. Godzilla was able to catch gigantic rope spears out of the air, defeated Zilla, who could run at speeds that made him appear as a blur, once again caught Kamacuras, who could move at Mach 2 out of the air, fought Anguirus, King Caesar, and Rodan, who can fly at the speed of sound all at once, and was completely even with and most impressively, was completely even with Monster X, who could react to Godzilla's own atomic breath, which, according to this calc I found on the Versus Battles wiki, travels at 16,339,600 miles per hour, or roughly 2% the speed of light. Godzilla traveled across the world, battling monsters on a constant basis and not showing any signs of fatigue, even into his fight with Monster X. Meaning I really can't put a limit on his stamina, as the only time he was ever tired was after literally having the energy drained from him by Kaiser Ghidorah. It should be no surprise that he was also incredibly durable, taking little damage throughout the film, and what showings he does have says a lot. He survived decades encased in ice, and when he got out showed no signs of being slowed down, was relatively unharmed after being cut by Gigan's chainsaw arms, tanked an explosion that resulted from destroying Gorath, which destroyed Tokyo and possibly more. And speaking of Gorath, there are a lot of people who say that this is a planetary durability feat, but no, it's not. First of all, the Zillions were lying about Gorath's true nature the entire time, as it was really a pod for Monster X, and B, Godzilla actually destroyed it before it made impact from space. But Godzilla did take the resulting explosion point blank, so I will give that to him. However, this isn't Godzilla's most impressive durability feat. In fact, it's one that's deceptively simple, that being the fact that he took hits from Monster X's and Kaiser Ghidorah's energy beams, which stalemated his own atomic breath. The same breath that destroyed Gorath. And now, while I'm not going to bore you with the math, I will be linking the calc down below for anyone who wants to see it for themselves. But long story short, Godzilla's own atomic breath comes out to multi-continental terms of power output. And again, Monster X's beam stalemated, and Godzilla was hit with the same beam, meaning that at minimum, Godzilla's durability should be multi-continental. Putting him even with Godzilla, Kurama stands at 328 feet tall and likely weighs somewhere around 60 to 80,000 tons. Kurama, like other characters from Naruto, likely knows how to use his chakra to enhance his physical abilities, though I won't be counting this as a special ability, as unlike, say, Sakura, I can't tell when this is the case, but I did want to mention it. Also, while technically not his physical body, I will be using feats granted by the chakra avatars used by Naruto and Minato, as Kurama is a being made from chakra itself, and these were only half of his powers, so it should be applicable. As a tailed beast, it's no surprise that Kurama was a powerhouse. It's said that using just his tails, Kurama was able to destroy mountains and create tsunamis. While acting as a chakra avatar, Kurama was able to pick up the six-tailed slug and use it to beat another Biju. And in only his incomplete eight-tailed state, Kurama was able to break free from Pain's Chibaku Tensei. Kurama is also very fast, especially for his size. As a chakra avatar, he kept up with at least 5 other Biju at once in combat, all of which, while weaker, were similarly as fast as himself. He kept up with multiple Sage Narutos who, by scaling to Pain and Kakashi, should make Kurama a lightning timer, and finally kept up with Hashirama's Wood Golem, which should scale to Hashirama, who is faster than the entire modern Naruto era, before that Sage of the Six Path stuff. Once again, this is a case where we honestly just don't have enough examples to go on for stamina, but as very few of Kurama's fights have lasted very long. Thankfully, however, due to his insane chakra, which doubles his stamina in the Narutoverse, it can be assumed that he can fight for very extended periods of time. While we don't have many durability feats, the ones we do say a lot here. Kurama's incomplete 10-tail transformation survived being locked inside of and broke out of Pain's Chibaku Tensei. While battling Naruto in his subconscious, Kurama survived being hit with Naruto's Sage Rasengan Barrage, and finally, as a chakra avatar, Kurama tanked a charged Biju beam from the 10-tails, which is comparable and probably even more powerful than a Biju Dama, which can create an explosion the size of a mountain. While both of these giant monsters were at the top of the food chain in their respective environments, when put head to head, one is going to end up in second place physically. Starting with strength, based on the examples of Godzilla throwing Kaiser Ghidorah and Kurama using the 6 tails like a club, Godzilla should have more strength, assuming that the other Biju are close to Kurama's own weight. However, that's actually wrong for one simple fact. The chakra avatar form Kurama used to accomplish this feat was only half of his power, as Minato split his chakra in two when scaling him. That means that even with conservative estimates, Kurama should be capable of throwing 40 million more pounds than Godzilla. Speed in comparison is pretty clear-cut as well. While Godzilla having reaction time on par with his own atomic breath clocks in at sub-relativistic speeds, Kurama on the other hand, scaling to and above lightning timers is simply relativistic, as natural lightning, as I've said before, is roughly 30% the speed of light, while Godzilla's breath clocks in at just over 2.4%. Something I'm sure will surprise almost none of my longtime viewers is that stamina is once again inconclusive, as throughout both series there is no example of this version of Godzilla or Kurama getting tired, and as such, I have little to say here. Durability was actually the hardest to decide, as both have been shown to take attacks capable of dealing serious damage to the planet, with Godzilla taking on an energy beam that stalemated his own continental atomic breath, and Kurama at half power surviving a powered up Bijudama, which when fired can level mountains. So I'd say they're at about even footing here, but there are some factors to consider, especially when it comes to Kurama. Firstly, Kurama's avatar, even though it survived, was visibly damaged from this attack, and Kurama wasn't solely responsible for tanking the hit, as the full form 8 Tails moved in front of the beam protecting Kurama and likely soaking up a lot of damage. And while this was only half of Kurama's power, I feel it's safe to say that even at full power, this would at least hurt. So I feel that Godzilla is just a bit stronger when it comes to durability. However, I really don't feel that makes up for the speed and strength advantage that Kurama has here, as Kurama can deal out more damage faster while avoiding more of Godzilla's own attacks and only having a bit less durability. And so I grant Kurama the edge in physical abilities. Having been mutated from the atomic bomb testing during World War II, Godzilla gained a number of abilities which planted him firmly at the top of Earth's food chain. While not explicitly stated in the movie, most forms of Godzilla have an active form of regeneration, allowing them to heal from damage during a fight, and it stands to reason that this version of Godzilla should retain this ability. However, it's unknown if it could regrow vital organs or lost limbs. His most iconic power, however, is his ability to manipulate radiation and fire it as a beam capable of killing other kaiju. In fact, as stated before in the physical comparison, Godzilla's atomic breath has been calced to be multi-continental in terms of damage output. However, that was only his base atomic breath. After gaining the Kaiser energy, he could create his red spiral ray, which was far more powerful, though how much I honestly can't say. And finally, after absorbing the Kaiser energy, Godzilla also manifested the ability to produce shockwaves of radiation and a less powerful AoE attack. During his era, Kurama was undoubtedly the most powerful of the tailed beasts, having been created using most of the 10 Tails chakra. Being a creature made entirely of chakra, it's no surprise that Kurama was skilled in chakra manipulation and manifestation, being capable of using his chakra for several different purposes. Starting with his non-combat oriented powers, Kurama can sense chakra from long distances, giving him a keen sense of his surroundings. However, this isn't limited to chakra, as he's also capable of sensing natural energy and even negative emotions. Kurama should also be capable of regeneration, as his chakra was capable of healing Naruto from life-threatening injuries in a short amount of time. And if his chakra can heal his host, it stands to reason that this power should extend to himself. The most powerful of his attacks, however, was the Bijudama, which could either be fired in a beam or as a charged up ball. Kurama's Bijudama was so powerful that it could counter the combined efforts of 5 other tailed beasts, all capable of destroying mountains with his and Killer Bee's combined Bijudama. He could also create a chakra shockwave, which, while in a limited form, was capable of destroying a bridge, encountered the Deva Path's Shinra Tensei, and at only half power could throw back 5 of the other tailed beasts at once. Also, as a side note to finish off, in the anime, Kurama in his 6-tailed form was capable of creating tornadoes and shooting fire, meaning that he should technically be capable of doing these things in full form. Well, talk about deja vu. Aside from Kurama's sensory and anime exclusive abilities, these two share a very similar skill set, so the easiest way to do this would be to break it down one by one. Starting with their regeneration, I feel the answer is obvious. While I'm sure Godzilla's regeneration is serviceable, he just hasn't been shown to deal from the same things Naruto, and by extension Kurama, should be capable of, or nearly as fast. Next is their shockwaves, and while I'm a little torn on this one, I'm leaning towards Kurama here. While true, in his Kaiser state he repelled Kaiser Ghidorah, who all but manhandled him before, Kurama sending 5 Biju flying is far more impressive than just pushing back Ghidorah, even if he is bigger. And again, take into consideration that this is half of Kurama's power. The Atomic Breath versus Biju Dama, while not the deciding factor, is very important, as it is their most powerful attacks respectively. Now, as stated at least 3 times now, according to the Calc in the description, Godzilla's Atomic Breath is hitting with cunning. Is hitting with multi-continental levels of damage and moves at 2% the speed of light. Meanwhile, Kurama's Biju Dama countered 5 mountain-leveling Biju Dama at once. Now, while this is impressive, I don't believe it quite matches the Atomic Breath in terms of power. At best, he could probably hold off and damage the damage dealt by it, but unless he puts a lot of power into it, that's about it. However, as I said, that isn't the only factor here, and while it is more powerful, Kurama's skill set is better in literally every other way. His regeneration heals worse damage at a faster rate, and the Chakra Shockwave is more powerful. Then you take Kurama's other abilities, like his sensory abilities, the ability to shoot fire, create tornadoes. For once, this isn't quantity versus quality. With the exception of one attack, Kurama has both. And so, I grant the Nine-Tailed Fox the edge in special abilities. Unlike in most of my matchups, I will not be using Star Wars lightsaber fighting forms to describe how both of these opponents approach combat, as A, neither uses melee weapons, and B, neither kaiju has been properly trained in martial arts. Regardless. So trying to attribute their combat styles in this way doesn't make sense, so I'm just going to be focusing on their battle intelligence. Despite being classified as a monster, Godzilla has shown himself to be a cunning and intelligent opponent who can react to and counter the skill sets of his fellow kaiju. When confronted with the kaiju hiding in the trees, Godzilla was able to use his Atomic Breath to force it into the open. When faced by 3 kaiju at once, he was able to quickly and precisely dismantle them, tricking and manipulating them into attacking each other, and even used Anguirus as a projectile against Rodan. He's also shown a good understanding of his environment, as well as how he can use it to his advantage, throwing Zilla into a Sydney opera house to stun him long enough to kill it with his Atomic Breath. When Kamakuras stayed above on a bridge, Godzilla created a tidal wave to destroy the platform before throwing it into a fallen radio tower in order to impale it, and even used Gigan's chainsaw arms to damage and break free from Monster X. And finally, used Kaiser Ghidorah's own energy beam, decapitating one of his heads. Overall, while not quite at the level of human sentience, underestimating Godzilla or assuming he's a mindless beast is a good way to end up as his latest kill. Being created generations ago by Hagoromo, Kurama has grown over the years to have a keen understanding of combat and his own abilities. Despite this, Kurama also knew that he was the most powerful Biju and either let this go to his head or grew complacent with his overwhelming power to get by, as shown even in his weakened state in the six-tailed form, where rather than try to engage in a strategy to take Pain down, he more or less just went berserk. Though that's not to say he's a mindless fighter, and if faced with a threat he knows is powerful enough to hurt him, he'll take a more cautious approach. It's just that he needs to take the threat seriously before he thinks this way. While he will be limited to his physical form for this fight, as an example, while a chakra avatar, Kurama took full advantage of his new form, creating hands at the end of his tails to better keep the other tailed beasts at bay, and even used one as a sort of battering ram against the other, and even knew in what is probably his only intelligent showing in the fight. In his six-tailed state, Kurama countered Pain Shinra Tensei with a chakra shockwave, as well as somehow figured out how to counter Kamui by forcing Obito to place Kakashi in the Kamui dimension, as well as giving Kakashi the power to enter or leave the Kamui dimension as he pleased, effectively nullifying the Kamui dimension entirely. Okay, so to get a big part of this out of the way now, Kurama overall is smarter than Godzilla. While true that Godzilla is capable of performing complex maneuvers in combat to get a leg up on his opponents, intelligent animals in real life are capable of similar things. To use the wave example, real-life orcas have been seen doing the same thing to knock seals off of floating ice. Environmental use also doesn't indicate human levels of intelligence, either, as some apes and even corvids have been shown to understand how to use objects in their surroundings to get resources such as food and water. So while Kurama is on the same level, if not above human humans, Godzilla, as far as I'm concerned, is more of a highly intelligent animal, probably around the same level as an ape or orca. Meanwhile, Kurama, while ironically will still be the more aggressive and reckless of the two, once he starts thinking critically, is going to be able to outthink, and outplan Godzilla. While Godzilla can come up with simple plans with deception and proper timing, Kurama knows how to take advantage of advanced techniques he's never seen before and develop counters to them, or even just cancel them out with his own abilities. Again, Godzilla is still very intelligent as a fighter, but Kurama has simply been shown to have a more strategic mind for combat, which is why I grant him the edge in combat skills and tactics. Let's set up this fight. Let's say that it takes place on the night of the Nine-Tails attack, but instead of extracting Kurama from Kushina, Obito decides to summon the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla, and Minato, in response, decides to set Kurama loose on Godzilla while he deals with the masked man. Kurama stared at the human below him in disgust. How dare the Kage order him around like some attack dog to be sicked on his enemy? It was no business of his as some glorified dinosaur was attacking the village. Hell, were it up to him, he'd do the same. However, the fourth Hokage seemed determined as he spoke. It's simple. Either you defend the village or I'll have you sealed into an infant. I'm sure the clans would all jump at the opportunity to have their air-beer vessel. Kurama could feel his blood start to boil. He wanted nothing more than to go join the monster out of spite. However, he knew this man very well could make good on his threats, and more than likely if he didn't comply, he'd simply be controlled. And so, deciding that he'd at least like to stay in control this time, he'd concede and agree. Godzilla stomped through the village, blasting apart buildings with little effort. These arrogant apes never seemed to learn. Ever since the day they had woken him up, they seemed to believe that they could control him. Or, if these ones were an example, destroy him. Ironic considering they seemed to somehow regress since the last time that he encountered them. Their bombs, fires, and energy attacks didn't seem to faze him, so he simply kept doing what he did best. That was until he heard and felt an earth-shaking roar from the side. Looking over, the king of the monsters saw a mountain with the faces of 4 humans, and on top of it, the nine-tailed fox ready to pounce. Godzilla faces the challenge with his own roar and runs at the Bijou. Kurama leaps at Godzilla, ready to slash with his claws, but as he's about to reach, Godzilla spins on his heel and smacks Kurama down with his tail into the village, sliding across, destroying several city blocks. Kurama goes to get back up, but while on his back, Godzilla is already on him and stomps down on his chest, pinning him to the ground, and starts to charge his atomic breath to finish off the opponent before a fight had started. Thinking quickly, Kurama uses his tail to hit Godzilla in the chin, sending his head up, and he fires into the sky. The fox uses this moment to kick up at the mutant and get out from under his foot, and as the beam ends, Kurama again leaps up, this time grabbing his head and slamming it into another small building, slamming it through another small building and into the ground. Kurama punches and slashes down on Godzilla until the king of the monsters catches Kurama's hand with his mouth, biting down as hard as he can. Kurama grabs his opponent's jaw and pulls, trying to pry open his mouth and free his hand. However, Godzilla uses the moment to roll, bringing Kurama with him, as the two tumble through the village before Godzilla finally lets go, throwing Kurama away. Brushing what remained of what looked like a hospital away, and remembering that he was supposed to be protecting the village, Kurama starts to think of how best to get Godzilla out of the area, and decides that the most direct method would be best, and charges at him with Godzilla firing his atomic breath. But Kurama, being more nimble, jumped to the side before slamming his shoulder into his opponent, throwing him off balance before grabbing his tail and throwing him over the village walls and into the surrounding forest. Kurama moves in, watching the still body of his opponent carefully. And as he leans over, however, Godzilla's eyes shoot open and a powerful tail blow to the ankle throws him off his feet. And before he can catch himself, Godzilla again fires his atomic breath, hitting Kurama's shoulder and throwing him back. The two giants get back to their feet, Godzilla standing tall while Kurama gets down on all fours. This creature, whatever it is, was smarter than it had appeared, and that blast had hurt far more than he was expecting it. He would need to play this smart or it could go very badly. Godzilla also sized up his opponent. It was clear the Bijou was fast and surprisingly strong. However, the atomic blast seemed to work. At the end of the day, however, this came down to the fact that he'd been challenged by this fox, and that simply couldn't stand. The kaiju made his move, shooting yet another atomic blast that Kurama dodged before jumping in and hitting the king in the face to try and knock him over. Godzilla, however, stood his ground and slashed back, cutting Kurama across the face before continuing his momentum and striking him with his tail. Kurama is stunned by this and looks up just in time to see Godzilla rush in as he bites down on his neck. Kurama screams and slashes at the king's neck to try and break free, but Godzilla ignores the pain and starts charging up his atomic breath while keeping a death grip on the Nine Tails. Kurama can feel the scorching heat from Godzilla's mouth and doubles his efforts, grabbing at his face and manages to stick a claw into one of Godzilla's eyes. The pain making him lose focus and accidentally let Kurama go before he can fully charge the atomic ray. Kurama uses this opportunity to give the Godzilla a taste of his own medicine, biting into Godzilla before using 3 of his tails at once to strike him down to the ground. The kaiju, dazed and on the ground, looks up in rage at his challenger and wants to yet again fire the atomic ray. However, Kurama has seen the attack enough to know its tells. Before he can get it off, fires a small Bijudama that explodes, taking a good chunk of the forest with it. In the center of the blast zone, Godzilla stands with hardly a scratch on him, however looking just as furious. Kurama wastes no time rushing in, and Godzilla does the same, with the two clashing and locking grips, each trying to overpower the other. And while Godzilla isn't outright overwhelmed, he is finding himself being pushed back by the demon fox. Not willing to lose any more ground, Godzilla activates his atomic pulse. Kurama doesn't see what hits him, but feels a wave of pain move through him, as well as a burning sensation on his palms. Stepping back, Kurama is again hit by Godzilla, who is once again charging the atomic breath. Godzilla then fires, however, before the ring beaches, an orange wave of energy erupts from Kurama in a shockwave, and the two forces meet. They're locked in a struggle of power until neither force can continue and create a small explosion that rocks both monsters. Kurama would act first, jumping at Godzilla before the dust even clears. However, Godzilla had expected this and sidestepped, pushing Kurama face first into a mountain. The Nine Tails at this point is furious and no longer cares about the deal, simply wishing to destroy this beast once and for all. And as Godzilla approaches, Kurama fires a rapid barrage of small Bijudama which all connect with Godzilla, resulting in a massive explosion that rocks the entire area. Waiting for the atomic breath to fire from the dust, he's pleasantly surprised to see the kaiju on his knee, breathing very heavily. Seeing the opportunity, Kurama launches into a furious attack, getting in slashes, kicks, and even several tail attacks, before once again throwing Godzilla, this time right through the same mountain he had been pushed into. The king of the monsters musters all of his strength and gets back to his feet. However, as he does, he sees something he simply doesn't understand, as Kurama begins forming a massive Bijudama nearly as big as himself. And if the small ones were as powerful as they were, Godzilla knew he had to stop this one, and pours all of his remaining energy into his atomic breath, which now turns crimson in his mouth. Both giant monsters charge their attacks for almost a full minute before they simultaneously unleash the attacks, both clashing in the middle as they pour all of their power into these attacks. However, as the struggle continues, it's clear that Godzilla can't keep up with his current injuries and runs out of power, resulting in the Bijudama hitting point blank in the face. The resulting explosion is nothing short of catastrophic, as the village and mountains all are shaken from it. And as the dust clears, nothing remains of the king of the kaiju. Seeing his victory, Kurama throws his head back and roars into the night, having vanquished his foe. And with that, I declare Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox, the winner. Okay, I'm gonna be honest here, guys. As a massive Godzilla fan, this hurts to say, but I just don't think this Godzilla has what it takes to bring down Kurama. Sure, he's more durable, but Godzilla was stronger. Sure, he's more durable, but Kurama was stronger and a damn good bit faster, which should make him incredibly hard to hit in the first place. Their special abilities for the most part are the same, and with the exception of the atomic breath versus Bijudama, Kurama was better in every way. However, something I didn't bring up but adds to my point, it's that it said that the power sealed inside of Naruto is enough to destroy the world. And remember, that was only half of Kurama's chakra, meaning that Kurama has the power to destroy the world twice over at least, meaning that if charged for long enough, Kurama's Bijudama would actually be stronger than the red spiral ray. However, in the comparisons, I wanted to keep those two at standard uses. Battle intelligence, while not a complete stomp, can be explained simply by the fact that Kurama is equivalent to, if not better than an average human, while Godzilla, albeit clever, is still an animal when it comes down to it. Overall, while slightly more durable and his atomic breath letting him hold his own, at the end of the day, that's just not enough to beat someone who is faster, stronger, smarter, and has better versions of all your abilities. Kurama is capable of dealing out at least twice the power needed to destroy the world. And while there are versions of Godzilla that would easily destroy Kurama, the Final Wars version simply isn't one of them. Godzilla is in the unfortunate position of being just close enough in every category to be a formidable threat that would certainly push Kurama, but not enough to believably come out on top. Which, ironically, bookends this season as the Naruto match that started it had a very similar result. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you agree that Kurama is smart enough to play to his advantages and bring down the king, or do you think that Godzilla is just durable enough to take the punishment until his atomic ray slays this demon fox? Let me know in the comments down below, and when I got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. And while my season of the Versus series may be ending, I would once again like to remind everyone that there are 2 other YouTubers currently in the middle of their own seasons of Versus series, with the user Winter Ghosts in his first season and the YouTuber 3 Topics Gamer, who I will never let you forget inspired this series, is in the middle of his 6th season. So if you miss my content for a month or 2, so if you find yourself missing my content for the next couple of months, go check them out, as their videos are definitely worth checking out. Right, with all that, I've been Rain922, and I'll see you all in Season 3.
Where's Maya? Safe for the moment. You're gonna tell me, either on your own, or after I skull fuck you and drain your memories out the hole.
Scary. You just don't get it, do you? I gave you everything, and this is how you come to me. Can't you understand what I'm doing? Humanity is stagnant, dying. I would give it one body, one mind. Think about it. No more conflict, no more disease, no more suffering. Don't you see? I'm giving it a second chance.
Enough of your fucking weird, fucking rambling shit! Give me my daughter!
No, I don't think so. It's time you gave me something. You see, young Amaya shares your brand of annoyingly resilient DNA. And when she's ready, your daughter will become the mother of the new world. So now the only thing standing between me and Earth's true destiny is you.
New conduits had been activated, all of them healed of the plague. We said goodbye to our old lives and got to work mastering our new abilities. There was a job to do. Millions were still infected, and all of them would die within weeks. We were living proof that some of the sick could be saved. I could raise them up, creating new conduits. Sure, the odds were only 1 in 1,000, but it was better than nothing. Of course, the rest of the world didn't agree, reacting in the only way they knew how. The plague just sped up the inevitable. An evolutionary jump. Humanity giving way to conduits. I'd been given powers to save the world from this change. But now I stand at its center. I have become the beast.
Generations ago, Kurama would be created along with the other nine-tailed fuck. It's not known exactly when the King of the Monsters was first born. Are you fucking serious? Starting with his non-combat oriented powers, Godzilla, of a hate-filled demon. Fuck. Okay, shit, that's stuck in there. Fuck. It's like genuinely stuck in it. Like, I can force other ones out, but not that one. Fuck. Hang on. If I drink more, maybe. Oh, I've wasted like an entire minute doing that now. So the easiest way to break this down would be is to break it. The chakra shockwave is more powerful. Being created generations ago by Hagoromo, Kurama was Being created generations ago by Hagoromo, Kurama was Okay, I'm gonna take a drink before I get started, so you can skip ahead like maybe 20 seconds or something like that, I don't know. Stepping back, Kurama is again hit by him, as well as a burning sensate. Wait, what? Shit.